Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am back after a long break and I have a request for you all. Nominations for Unity's 15th annual awards are ongoing and there is a category for Best Newcomer, so if you find my videos helpful, consider nominating me and hopefully it will allow me to gain some exposure. Okay, in today's video we will recreate Watergun effect from Pokemon games. Super simple and easy way to do it is with VFX Graph. First, a big shout out to Jogi Sunny. I have probably butchered it, sorry. And thank you for the video suggestion. You are breathtaking. For this, I'm using Unity version 2023.1 and I have a project set up in URP. I have already gone ahead and installed VFX Graph package. I also have the post-processing volume with main modules bloom and tone mapping with the mode ACES. Now with that out of the way, let's roll the intro. First, let's create a VFX graph. Right click, create, visual effects, and visual effect graph. Let's call it Watergun VFX. Let's also add it to our scene, so in hierarchy, right click, visual effects, visual effect. We will call it Watergun effect and assign our VFX graph into the asset template slot. In VFX graph, first we will go to output context and change the main texture. I'm going to use the default smoke texture. Then check this use soft particles option. Soft particle means if our particle go through any solid object, it will fade out, and this soft particle fade distance will determine at which distance our particle starts to fade. We will keep it at 1. In the size over life attribute, I'm going to set a curve so our particle starts small, then gets big, then small again. In set color over life attribute, we will set some color, but we want to control that from the inspector. So let's create a gradient property. I will call it color and give some default bluish color gradient. Drag it in and feed it into the color slot. Then in the inspector, set its composition to multiply. By doing this, our gradient will multiply with color that we will feed in the initialize context. Now in the spawn context, we will control the spawn rate. We want to do that from the inspector, so let's create a float property. Call it spawn rate, give default value of 500, drag it in, and feed it into the rate slot. Now in the initialize context, we have capacity of 32. But we are spawning 500 particles every second, so let's increase the capacity to like 15,000. We will set the bounce mode to automatic with no padding. We have set it to automatic because we don't know the active area of our effect right now. In set velocity random attribute, we will set x between -1 and 1 and z between 8 and 10. I want some waves in by, so let's create a total time operator. It will give us seconds passed since our effect started. Take total time operator's output and feed it into the sine wave operator. As the name suggests, it will give us sine waves based on our input with defined min-max. We will control the frequency from the inspector, so let's create a float property. Call it frequency, give default value of 5, drag it in and feed it into the frequency slot. Then take sine wave operator's output and feed it into the y slot of velocity A. Take another output from sine wave and feed it into the negate operator. Negate operator will multiply our input with -1. Take negate operator's output and feed it into the y slot of velocity b. In the set lifetime attribute, we want our particles to live for only 1 second, so in the inspector, set the random mode to off. Okay, let's add a set position attribute to control the spawn position of our particles with shape arc circle. Right now, our particles are spawning from the surface of circle. We want them to spawn from within the shape, so let's set the position mode to volume. And we want to control the radius from the inspector, so you guessed it. Let's create a float property, call it spawn radius, give default value of 0.1, drag it in, and feed it into the radius slot. Now our particle system is in local space, so if I rotate our game object, our particles will rotate with it as if it is a solid object. So we will set the simulation space to world by just tapping this button thingy labeled as local. And now it looks like a spraying water a bit. Now let's set the initial color, and for that let's add set color random attribute with mode uniform. We don't want different numbers in each RGB component, or in simple terms, we only want random color between grayscale values, hence we chose uniform. I will set the second color with some high intensity. Let's set random angle for our particles, so we will add set angle random attribute with mode uniform. We only want rotation on Z-axis, so from the channels drop down select Z-axis, and we want rotation between 0 and 360. In update context, let's add some forces. First is obviously gravity, so let's add gravity attribute. Now we want to control how far we can shoot the water, so let's add a force attribute. It will add a force on given axis. We want to add force on Z-axis and want to do that from the inspector, so let's create a float property, call it front force, give default value of 1, drag it in, and feed it into the Z-axis. That's it for our VFX graph. In the scene view, let's adjust our effect properties. And we have a nice and simple Watergun effect. That's pretty much the video. If you find the video helpful, consider like, share and subscribe. Wishlist my game Cosmic Roads on Steam. If you have any questions, post them in the comments. That's it from me, and I will see you guys in the next one. And Totodile, use Watergun.